Let's talk about something fascinating that's happening right now in U.S. drug policy. We're going to look at three recent developments that are really starting to challenge some long-held fears, and they reveal a pretty surprising new reality. You know, for decades, the entire debate has been framed by one central question: what are the risks? But what if the data we're getting now tells us that those risks were, well, misunderstood? What if the worst-case scenarios just aren't happening? That's the big question we're digging into today. For years, you've heard it. The number one argument against legalization has always been about the kids. This deep-seated fear of a huge spike in teen marijuana use. But the latest federal data? Well, it tells a remarkably different story.
Okay, so our first piece of the puzzle comes from the Monitoring the Future survey. This is a massive, long-running federal project, basically the gold standard for tracking youth trends. And what it's found recently is kind of remarkable.
Now listen to this quote. This isn't from some activist group. This comes straight from an official at the National Institute on Drug Abuse, NIDA for short. And it basically confirms that even as more states legalize cannabis, reported use among teens is staying flat. It's just holding steady.
But wait, it doesn't even stop there. Because when researchers dug a little deeper into the numbers, they found an even more surprising shift in how teens actually think about and interact with cannabis.
So get this, not only is teen use stable, but students are now saying that cannabis is harder to get. They're also more likely to see it as harmful. And, this is a big one, their disapproval of even occasional use is actually going up. This flies directly in the face of the idea that legal markets would normalize it for kids.
All right, so this shift isn't just about cannabis. The whole conversation is expanding. Our second story takes us over to New Jersey, which is stepping onto a totally new frontier by creating a state-funded pilot program for psilocybin therapy.
And just so we're all on the same page, when we talk about psilocybin therapy, we are not talking about recreational use. This is the clinical, supervised use of psilocybin to treat serious mental health conditions. Think severe depression, anxiety, often for people who just haven't found relief anywhere else.
And New Jersey is being super careful about this. They're not just winging it. A bill is passed, they've set aside millions in funding, and they're setting up a formal 2-year trial in 3 different hospitals, all under strict FDA guidelines. Only after all that will they make recommendations about what to do next.
You can really hear the ambition in this quote from the bill sponsor, Senate President Nick Scutari. This isn't just some small policy tweak. This is a state government actively trying to get out ahead and lead what they see as a totally groundbreaking new field of medicine.
So, we have federal data challenging old fears, and state policy exploring brand new frontiers. But what's the engine behind all this change? Well, our third piece of the puzzle is public opinion. And it's reached a tipping point, even in places you really might not expect, like Indiana.
Just look at these numbers from the Bowen Center's Who's Your survey. They are pretty stunning. Nearly 3 out of 5 residents in Indiana, that's 59%, now support legalizing marijuana for both medical and recreational use. Only a tiny slice, 16%, are against any kind of legalization. And if you add together the folks who want full legalization and those who support just medical use, you get to this incredible number, 84%. That is an overwhelming majority of people in Indiana who believe marijuana should be legal, at least for patients. And here's the kicker. This support isn't coming from just one group. As Andrew Bauman from the Bowen Center points out, it's this broad, mainstream coalition. We're talking business leaders and parents that has totally changed the game. Okay, so let's step back for a second and connect these 3 dots. Surprising data on youth use, pioneering therapeutic policy, and just overwhelming public support. What does it all mean for the big picture of drug policy in the U.S.? It really boils down to 3 key takeaways. First, the reality on the ground, the actual data, is starting to contradict the very fears that shaped policy for decades. Second, the policy debate itself is getting bigger, moving beyond cannabis into these new therapeutic areas. And third, public opinion is now this incredibly powerful force for change that you just can't ignore. So here's the bottom line. We are watching a fundamental shift happen in real time. The old way of thinking, which was built mostly on fear and assumptions, is being taken apart. And in its place is something new, something built on actual data, on therapeutic potential, and on the clear will of the people. And that really leaves us with one big question, doesn't it? We've seen the narrative on youth cannabis use, on psilocybin therapy, and on public support all change dramatically. So as this trend continues, you have to wonder, which long-standing drug policy domino is going to be the next one to fall?